Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everyone. Everyone's here at the Sheraton is still coming in and gathering in the room here. If you can hear me at home, welcome. Welcome to our annual donor appreciation event. My name is Renato Zane, and I am the volunteer chair of the British Columbia Schizophrenia Society Foundation, and I'm the chair of the board. As we begin, I want to acknowledge that we are grateful to be gathering on Indigenous land, and wherever you may be joining us, that's probably the case. Here in Richmond, we humbly recognize that we are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, and that includes the territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. We respect their lasting ties to this land and want to share our grateful and heartfelt gratitude for being able to live, work, and create on this land. Tonight's event is our opportunity to thank you for your generosity and to show you how your donations have made a difference to families affected by schizophrenia and other severe and persistent mental illnesses in this province. We're extremely grateful for your contributions over the years. I feel emotional about it, actually. Thanks to your ongoing support, we've been able to enhance our support programs and expand our outreach through videos, podcasts, social media, and educational events that continue to be free to the public. We ensure that donations made to BCSS go towards programs and services for families impacted by schizophrenia. Your support has truly made a difference. Today, we will hear from our staff members who will share with you the progress we've made together as a community because of your contribution. You will hear also from some special guests, Ron and Melanie, who are here tonight, who are parents of a loved one living with schizophrenia spectrum disorder. Thank you for coming. But above all, this event is about you, our donors. We are truly grateful for your support. As you know, the mandate of the foundation is to raise funds in support of the British Columbia Schizophrenia Society, including its family support programs, advocacy, and education. The foundation supports much needed society programs and also provides funds to support scientific research about schizophrenia. Before I introduce Marsha McMurtry, our Director of Development, who will share with you her update, I'd like to recognize the volunteers who serve on the foundation board with me. They are Joanne Leong, who's following online, Margareta Dovgal, Guelda Redmond, and Sylvia Leroy, who's here tonight. I also want to, yes, applause. Thank you. I also want to express sincere gratitude to our former board member, Chris Sandy, who for an impressive 8 consecutive years, has pledged to match donations up to $10,000 for our annual holiday appeal. Chris is passionate about supporting the BCSS Foundation, and he has openly shared his personal connection to schizophrenia through his dear brother, Dave. If you're unfamiliar with Dave's story, you can find it detailed in Chris's letter on the BCSS Foundation website. Also, although Chris cannot join us in person today, we're deeply honored and thankful for his unwavering commitment and generous contributions to our cause. And I'd like to give him a round of applause. Thank you, Chris. We know you're watching from home, so thank you so much for supporting BCSS. Our 2023 holiday letter was sent out earlier this week, so you will see that in your mailbox very soon. I actually got mine today, and it was wonderful. It features former BCSS Executive Director Jane Duval, who shares her personal story about family education, the health system, and the role BCSS played in her life. And now, I'd like to pass the word to Marsha, who will provide us with the latest updates on the work at BCSS. Welcome.
Thanks, Renato, and I might move this down just a little bit. I would love to be taller, but that's not the case. Hello, everybody. My name is Marsha McMurtry, and I'm the Director of Development at the BC Schizophrenia Society. And today we are all gathering here to thank you, all of you, and celebrate you. As a team, we've been able to do a lot in this past year, And BCSS, we all know, is extremely unique. We focus on schizophrenia and other severe and persistent mental illness. And we are here not only to support our families across the province through various programs, but to also actively raise awareness about serious mental illness and to help decrease the stigma that still exists today. But we cannot do this without you. We are extremely grateful for all the support you have given BCSS. This year, we have put a lot of work into revising our Strengthening Families Together program, a 6-week program which was vetted by medical experts and family members. And we continue to strengthen and create more structure around our partnership education presentations within the community. We hosted several educational events, including the Eye of the Storm, a 1-act play in May, to honor National Schizophrenia and Psychosis Day. You were there, Ron and Millie. Yeah, great event that happened in May. We continue to find new ways to reach more families through videos, social media, newsletters, and community presentations. And with your continued support, we are able to offer another season of our podcast, Look Again, Mental Illness Reexamined, which now has over 60,000 listeners. Yeah, it's incredible. We definitely have to thank our communications team that works so hard behind the scenes for that. Just tremendous that we have that many listeners, and we hope to obviously have more in the future. This can all happen because of you, our donors. Thank you for your involvement, your advocacy, letters of support, and your financial support. We served over 700 new families just in the past year. And the only reason we were able to do that is because we did it together. So thank you to everybody who helped BCSS this past year. Thank you for your continued support. We are celebrating our 41st anniversary this year. 41 years ago, families had nowhere to turn. Today, through your support, we can provide a variety of programs and services for families impacted by serious mental illness. 40+ years shows that BCSS is a long-standing, dedicated organization, and we fully intend to be around for another 40 years. But that will only be possible if we all work together. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for your continued support. I'm so truly grateful to each and every one of you. And thank you for being part of BCSS, and thank you for making and doing your part to make this possible. So thank you. You're back up or not?
I'm very excited to be working with Marcia on fundraising. Marcia has taken this job and really got her hands into all of the aspects of it. So I'm really looking forward to what the years ahead will bring. Thank you so much, Marcia. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Rosemary Soika, Community Presentations Coordinator for BCSS. Working in the vulnerable sector for over 2 decades, Rosemary has dedicated her career to making a positive impact in the community. She's a volunteer in a housing stabilization program, and her commitment to community well-being continues with BCSS. Rosemary actively promotes education, awareness, and support for the most vulnerable individuals and their families. Her passion lies in every part of her work. You'll hear that tonight. She believes that it is through community that we may instill hope. Recently, Rosemary led BCSS to create a video about our partnership education program, which uses storytelling to shed light on the reality and humanity of mental illness. This video was produced in partnership with Kahani Pictures, and it was made possible with the generous support of the BC Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions, as well as the Vancouver Community College Faculty Association. So without further ado, I will let Rosemary introduce you to this collaborative effort.
Whoops, I really have to lower this down. Okay, well, thank you for being here, and thank you for contributing your time, your energy, and your money as well. We appreciate it so very much. I stand before you as a message to inform and inspire, hopefully through this video. This video, I wanted something different. I wanted a storytelling concept as well as sharing topical information about the mental illnesses. For many, this story is very familiar, perhaps too familiar. But this video was intended for those people that are not that aware, that are not that familiar with the stories. The video was intended to be multifunctional. It was intended to be, yes, a promotional tool for BCSS, but also as an educational tool for the partnership education presentation. And this video, again, with our classic video with that has a family member, a person with lived experience, this one is a bit different. It does have a family member, it does have a person with lived experience, but it also has a BCSS educator, because it's the educators and the managers that are the front line that deliver the message out there. And so to pay homage and respect to them, we included the BCSS educator. It's also a very short video, under 10 minutes, to hopefully appeal to our current attention span these days. You know, make it short, make it sweet, and let's go. And also the video it's educational, that it can be used when we are unable to get a person with lived experience or a family member or a professional to present the information. So this video can present that information where the BCSS educator will always expand and highlight the information. And we also want to highlight and respect the value of our healthcare professionals, which we do so in the presentations, because we need them and we value them, and we're part of the team for our loved ones. This main video, under 10 minutes, we also have for it 6 social media cuts that we can use for social media. And I want to give out a shout out to Roselle, our social media person, who's doing a fantastic job on social media for BCSS. And we also have singular videos for the family member, the person with lived experience, that we can share in case, you know, life is interrupted. It happens when we do a presentation. Perhaps a family member is unable to attend. Perhaps a person with lived experience is unable to attend. So we do have that singular perspective to share on video for them. It highlights also in this video siblings who wonder, my parents are aging, am I taking over that role? What are their concerns? What's going to impact them? So we wanted to bring that perspective into this video as well. And also I wanted to use a youthful figure, a face, for representing youth and trying to appeal to the younger audience in social media as well. And our very own Melissa McKenna, who is our communications manager, has shared her experience here. This video, I would say, it's a soft share. You heard of a soft sell? This is a soft share. It's really for those who are uninitiated into your stories. They're not familiar with what you're going through, the challenges of what you're going through. We're trying to elicit an understanding and awareness for them so they can be introduced to your struggles as a family member or a person with lived experience, but also to hopefully elicit understanding, empathy, awareness, education, but also to instill hope. BCSS is hope. And every story may not have a happy ending. Every story has a different journey that it takes. But this story has four voices I would love to share with you. Now, enough of my voice. Let's bring on the other voices, please. Thank you.
BCSS is about families, helping families like my own. My oldest son has schizophrenia. One of the things I do is our PEP program, which is a partnership education presentation. And what we do is bring with me a person of lived experience, which is a person living with a major mental illness, and then a family member who's living with a loved one who has a major mental illness. It's not about clinicians, it's not about statistics. It's about families, helping families. We need to destigmatize mental illness, major depression, or bipolar, or schizophrenia. What does that mean? We're able to enlighten people, then that makes people less afraid, and then they will be able to talk about it.
My youngest son, he's been diagnosed with schizophrenia. There was just a lot that has happened in the span of about 7 years, and if I could go back and document all of the things from beginning to end, it would probably be helpful to somebody else. Parenting on its own is difficult enough. There's a lot of judgment. Your son's not behaving like the rest of the kids. What are you doing wrong?
As a sibling, it's been unique. I have to recognize that he's not trying to be an annoying little brother. This is not him trying to make things difficult. It's his mental illness. I think siblings are often left out of the conversation.
Being in recovery of mental health and substance use has paid off. I am now working full-time. I'm just a normal human being that has a disease that needs treatment and needs medication and self-care and support and love, and that don't be afraid of me because I tell you I'm hearing voices.
Schizophrenia has a specific symptomatic presentation, usually hallucinations of some sort, either auditory or visual. Could be seeing people that are not there, could be hearing people that are not there, smelling things that they think are poison. It takes a long time to get a proper diagnosis.
It's very difficult to get somebody to take mental health issues seriously. The number of times I had a medical professional say, "You just need to get your son off of drugs." How do I convince somebody that is 100% sure that there's helicopters following them and the cat's emitting Wi-Fi signals to get off drugs? Because they're not seeing things properly. They're not seeing things in the way that the rest of us are seeing them.
You only hear about mental illness when people are talking about, overdose crises, people who are homeless, violence. We don't hear about anything other than those worst case scenarios. Why not address things earlier?
I still intermittently get auditory hallucinations and smell hallucinations, but I manage that through techniques of self-care and as needed medication. But I have to be diligent. I still have delusions. I don't live them. I acknowledge them, but I don't let them rule me. I do have to take pharmaceutical medication for the rest of my life. I'm also diabetic, so I have to take medication for my diabetes. And people don't look at me as terrible for taking medication for my diabetes. So the same should be said for mental health.
Depression, there's people who are depressed because something happens, like they lose a job or somebody dies, and that's normal depression. So clinical depression is very different than just a sadness.
People say, yeah, I had depression for a while. That's not my brother's journey. Everyone has mental health the way everyone has physical health. We can have, a good day or a bad day the same way we can have, a cold or be feeling under the weather. But you wouldn't compare feeling under the weather to someone who is experiencing, cerebral palsy or cancer. You're comparing two different things.
Nobody wakes up one morning and says, you know what, I'm going to get a shopping cart and I'm quitting my job. I'm going to get a drug addiction and a mental health issue, and that's what I want to do. And there's people out there that seem to have the opinion that that's a choice. It's not a choice.
For people who have bipolar, they're dealing with major depression and a mania. So they go into what looks like psychosis, which could look like schizophrenia, and they go into a mania that makes them have tons of energy and do things that are maybe very not good for them.
You don't live in reality where everyone else is living. You live in your own deluded reality, and it becomes your paranoia rises, your fear rises, your anxiety rises, your serotonin levels drop, your mood changes, your brain, your neurotransmitters aren't connecting properly, that you're not getting the dopamine's off, the endorphins are off, the serotonin's off. That's why we take medication, so these things can be leveled out and give us the chance to not be in psychosis and not to be living our delusions as if that was what reality is.
Anosognosia is really hard for people to wrap their heads around, harder than it is to even, say the word. He can't comprehend that he is sick.
One of the biggest things I always remind myself with my son is that he didn't pick this. Like, he didn't just wake up one morning and go, I'm going to pick from a grab bag of mental illnesses, and this is what I want to be afflicted with the rest of my life.
In our society, we have to treat the fear that people have with mental health. Because if you look at media, how media portrayed schizophrenics as a personality disorder, that they're 5 or 4 different personalities, when someone would call you schizo, they're saying your personality is split, you're double-minded. That's actually not the case at all. People who we see on the street or who are accessing mental health, we can't look at them as a lens of they're hopeless.
The highlight of my work with BCSS is that I am able to speak with families who are exactly like me when my son was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I hadn't a clue on what I was going to do about that. And I know what I hear from the families saying that, thank goodness we have somebody who understands. Thank goodness we are able to speak to you in a way because other people don't understand, and we can't speak to anybody anyway because people are afraid to get. And we're trying to help people at BCSS not be afraid of the word schizophrenia, look at it as we would look at any other illness and treat it like we would treat it any other illness.
Sometimes it's nice to have someone to talk to about my experiences with my brother, because I know who he is inside, and I know, like, I trust him, I love him, and I know who he is. And I think having that safe space to talk with people who understand, not just can understand, but are really listening and going, I've been there.
This affects a large portion of Canadians. Nobody wants to go through this sort of stuff alone. There is a certain amount of comfort going like, oh, you've had the same problem? Well, funny thing, I've had the same problem. Let's sit down and compare some notes.
In our society, we have to treat the fear that people have with mental health. I feel like people can learn compassion, can learn empathy, can learn connection, can learn acceptance, can give grace, can flourish when they're supported and loved and encouraged. So I feel like in community, we could learn how to remember the connection that you have with your family. If you have good relationships, wouldn't you want that for people who are struggling with mental health? I would hope so,
What a great video. Congratulations, Rosemary, and the whole team that put that together. Thank you, Catherine, who's here tonight. You're amazing on camera. Really appreciate all the, yeah, congratulations. But what's very impressive to me is that in a short amount of time, you've covered a lot of ground in a very effective way. So I'm sure this is going to be extremely useful for BCSS going forward and for the general population as well. I was thinking, you know, it would be nice to see this on Knowledge TV or something someday. Really well done. So congratulations. Tonight, we're also very glad to have our special guests, Ron and Melanie Kendler, who are joining us. They are parents of a loved one living with schizophrenia spectrum disorder. They, like so many, have been on a journey with this illness. Through the help of BCSS, they've been able to find resources to help their family and their loved ones. Today, we're going to hear their story and the impact that BCSS has had on their family. So thank you for joining us tonight, Ron and Melanie. Why don't you come up and tell us?
That just said it all. Catherine, you're amazing. That was awesome.
It's a pretty tough act to follow, that one. So thank you for the warm welcome.
Yeah.
It's off to you.
I gotta apologize. It may seem like we are reading from a script. A little bit of fun there. Thank you.
Oh.
That's okay. That's okay if I do that. It was only the one time. But what I found with the BCSS is they said that laughing is really important. And I've just got to really mention Catherine here. There have been so many times on Zooms that she said things and I've laughed so hard and I've remembered them and they have touched my heart. So thank you so very much. We're apologizing just a bit about that we might be reading a bit. Ron and I are both teachers and actually talking is really easy for us. Actually, we oftentimes talk too much. Okay, so it's not usually a problem. However, when we were going through all of this, we found it really difficult. It was very emotional going through it, the raw feelings. And what we found was if we can use this, then we can stay on track. So anyways, after we were asked to do this talk, Ron and I were sitting on we were on a ferry boat. We were on the BC ferries. And we were talking about how can we adequately convey the one overwhelming feeling that has plagued us throughout our entire journey. And I turned to Ron, we were talking, and he comes up with, he says, "Hey, Melanie, picture this. Picture someone you really care and love. Now imagine yourself with that person after being told that they have cancer. You're filled with huge emotions, right? Emotions of shock, worry, fear, and panic. And when you're finally able to take a breath, you ask the doctor, so what next? What can we do? What are the treatment options?" And the doctor says, "There are many treatments for this type of cancer, but we can't do anything until the cancer decides it wants to be treated." And when Ron said this is for us the most frustrating obstacle in our path to get help for our loved one.
Now, the past few years have definitely been an emotional roller coaster. So my eyes are a little blurry right now even. And it's not overstating things to say that the BC Schizophrenia Society saved us. We were asked if we would be willing to share about the positive impact that the BCSS has had on our lives. And some of the first words that jumped to my mind was, well, the BCSS is miraculous, empathetic, knowledgeable, and thank goodness persistent. Now, our story, sadly, is not new, but it was devastating for us as it unfolded. There's an old adage that says ignorance is bliss, and nothing could be further from the truth when you're dealing with an active psychosis. Now, I'm going to give you a little background. Our loved one is a brilliant artist who has won numerous academic and artistic awards and scholarships, both at high school and university. Our loved one lived independently as they worked and attended university. But during this time, we noticed a definite change. The behavior became increasingly bizarre and confrontational. For many months, we tried to convince ourselves that it was just something they would get over in time, something they might grow out of. We just had to remain patient. But as time went on, we knew in our hearts that something was really wrong. Images of our loved one living on the street, cold, afraid, alone, and dying. These were constantly in our heads. And what complicated things even more was that we had become the focal point of their rage and delusions.
So we would go into Vancouver a few times each week. We'd bring him food and certain essentials. And I clearly remember saying to Ron in the car, I'm afraid. I really don't want to go. What are we going to find this time? This guilt was crushing our souls. How can you dread seeing your own child? And so began the never-ending series of calls to our family doctor, mental health units, EPI, hospital units, VGH, the Access Center, and programs at UBC. All the places we could think of or heard about that help people with mental illness. We were told about all the supportive programs, treatments, housing, funding that a person with mental illness had access to. There was only one catch. The person with the mental illness needed to agree to get the help. So we asked, but what if they don't agree? Well, if they harm themselves or someone else, then the police can bring them into hospital. How many times did we hear, no, I'm sorry, there is nothing else that you can do?
And a few years ago, we experienced what we call the Christmas explosion. There was a huge, severe psychotic episode, extreme paranoia towards us. It was 72 hours of utter chaos.
At one point, with Ron trying to prevent our loved one from leaving the house, I remember putting my face about 2 inches from theirs in hopes of being punched, but they did not. We had become that desperate for help.
We called the police, and they saw what our loved one's mental distress was like. And with their help, we were able to get our loved one to the Access Center at VGH. We thought, it's a work. And with all the information that we conveyed to the intake nurse, they agreed that, yes, they deserve to be here. They should be here. And they tried to convince our loved one to be admitted to hospital, but they refused. Once again, we received the same response we had heard countless times before. We are sorry, but your loved one does not want to be admitted. If they are willing to come in, then we can help. Our loved one's anger, as you can imagine, increased towards us. And Their mental and physical deterioration over the next few months was exponential. The food would spoil in the fridge, the food that we would bring in, it would spoil in the fridge because they were unplugging the fridge because of the voices in the hum. And so they couldn't stand it. They were living in filth and squalor. We were even afraid of violence against us, and we felt completely helpless. We were drowning in hopelessness and fear with no end in sight.
The silver lining was the BC Schizophrenia Society. After one more late night internet search, we found the BCSS webpage. Shortly after, we attended our first support Zoom meeting and realized with tears of relief that we were not alone. Hardeep had a private Zoom with us the very next day that brought us immediate relief. Here was someone that listened to our concerns and understood our desperation. She offered us a roadmap to navigate the mental health system to get help for our loved one. The three steps we could pursue to get our loved one admitted to hospital. This is what she gave us. And it was, we hadn't been given this before. 1, through the family doctor by providing collateral information. It didn't work for us, but that was step 1. Step 2, through the police, preferably Car 87, because it's staffed with a psychiatric nurse and a police officer that has been trained. And we could get them to do, if we could get them to do a wellness check. We tried that. It did not work. And the third thing was the judge's warrant, involuntary admittance. We had no idea even what a judge's warrant was. And I remember thinking we would never use a judge and go through the legal system. The reasons I had and Ron had were that our loved one and other family members would never forgive us. We also felt that our loved one was not a criminal. So why would we go through a judge? Other people may have family members that are so violent that they need to get the law involved, but not us.
Now, attending the BCSS Zoom meetings did not cure our loved ones. But as Melanie and I wrestled with our feelings, we cannot stress how important the support meetings were and are. Hardeep, Catherine, Jennifer, and Stella all made us feel welcome and accepted. The fear, confusion, and hardship shared by the participants, the other participants there, was and still is raw and heart-wrenching. We were not judged. We were met with empathy and compassion. Now, still, there was fear. For us, there was fear that we would lose the relationship with our loved one if we went through the judge's warrant. Now, Catherine, here's a shout out to you. She gave us some wonderful insight when she said something along the lines of, would you rather see your loved one thriving, happy, and hating you, or liking you and remaining untreated? That sentiment helped us tremendously because it was at this time that we found out our loved one was soon to be evicted. Hardeep, the police officers of Car 87 and the BCSS helped us to understand the gravity of our situation. They advised that we act quickly before our loved one was living on the streets. We called Hardeep on that weekend. Our loved one was being evicted on the Tuesday. We didn't have much time. She helped us craft our collateral information into a letter for the warrant.
On the Monday morning, so the next day, she met us at the courthouse and guided us through each step of the warrant process. And believe you me, It's intimidating. She quite literally held our hands. This was the most difficult, scary, intense thing we had ever done in our lives. The judge read our warrant request and with very compassionate words, wished us the best of luck and handed over the warrant. Hardeep was there to hug us as we collapsed with tears and relief. She stayed with us the whole time and never let us fall. Now, here's the kicker. Hardeep did all of this while she was actually on vacation. She canceled family things to be with us. This is the essence of the BC Schizophrenia Society.
Subsequently, our loved one was hospitalized, later transitioned to a step-down unit, and eventually was able to move back home. The BCSS was there every step of the way, letting us know what to expect. Their advice about providing collateral information was invaluable to our loved one getting the treatment they needed. If we had questions, and I'll be honest, we had a lot of questions. The wonderful people at the BCSS had answers, or they were willing to find answers. Their advice and knowledge was and is invaluable. Their willingness to advocate on our behalf was such a relief. Knowing what we know now, we would not hesitate to recommend going for a judge's warrant if the other avenues aren't working out. It was heart-wrenching work, but by far the best decision we have ever made. And thank you to the BC Schizophrenia Society for their patience and persistence in letting us come to terms with our decision. The BCSS continues to give us emotional and educational support. We are better prepared after participating in different workshops and are grateful for all the advocacy they do with the different stakeholders like the police and the mental health system. We were awed and brought to tears by the compassionate, insightful interviews that Phaedra conducted with people living with mental illness. Their bravery in sharing their stories helped us to see that there is hope and a future for our loved one.
At one BCSS event, Oliver, a person living with schizophrenia, publicly thanked a friend for being there with him in his darkest moments. The friend said, all they were doing was holding the hope when he no longer could. Just like Oliver's friend, the BC Schizophrenia Society holds the hope for so many families who have a loved one that is suffering the effects of a mental illness. We survive and grow. Our loved one survives and has a possible future. There is no doubt in our mind that without the empathy, compassion, and help from the people of the BC Schizophrenia Society, our loved one would probably not be with us today. Thank you to the BCSS and all of its supporters, so all of you, for what you have done for us, but also for what you continue to do for so many families. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know anybody who can remain unaffected when you hear a journey like that. And thank you so much for being so eloquent about it and for helping us walk through the valley of the shadow of death and then on the other side. And I do feel that we have angels among us, and you've mentioned a number of them by name. There are people online and there are people here who have similar stories. And you probably, Gerhard Paul is here, who's the former chair of the BC Schizophrenia Society Foundation. He He has lots of stories to share with you if you don't know each other. Lots of people here have had similar experiences. And I think for all of us following along, we greatly appreciate you bearing your soul and explaining these things to us. So thanks again. So it's through these poignant accounts that we gain a deeper understanding of BCSS's mission and the collective strength that we have as we unite towards a common goal: families helping families. We need to build a future. There's more work to do. We need to build a future with less stigma and a province that provides excellent treatment and services for people affected by schizophrenia and psychosis. I think we will always remember your words. So thank you again, Ron and Melanie. Now I'd like to pass the mic over to Marcia, who has a message from our Chief Executive Officer, Phaedra Aldridge, who unfortunately can't be here tonight, but she will also introduce an interview that Phaedra had with Julie Cornelson, a dedicated member of the BCSS team who has served for over 2 decades. Over to you.
We've talked a lot tonight about our staff and all those that work at BCSS, and we would certainly be remiss in not mentioning sort of our fabulous Phaedra, who would be here tonight and would be speaking to you. So I'll do my best to impart what she has to say this evening, but we do miss that you aren't here tonight, Phaedra. Good evening. Unfortunately, I'm not able to join you tonight as I'm dealing with a family emergency in Alberta. However, it is important you are all aware how grateful I am that you are here tonight and for all your support all year long. We have all heard the saying, it takes a village to succeed, and this organization is no exception. I'm going to list some of those people that help make BCSS as strong as it is. The entire staff team from across the province. Some of you are in this room tonight. Thank you to the regional managers and educators working directly with their families every day. Thank you to the provincial office team for supporting the managers and educators and for all you do to keep our team moving forward so we can provide the best possible services for families. Thank you to Conan, Marcia, Andrew, Melissa, Roselle for making tonight's event possible. I have said so many times how grateful I am to be a part of this team, and I hope to say it 1,000 times more. I'm truly honored to be a part of this team. Thank you to our volunteer board members from the BCSS Society and BCSS Foundation. Those board members in the room tonight, please stand so we can applaud you. Thank you so much. Our donors. We are very grateful for all of BCSS donors, whether you've been helping to support BCSS for 20 years or 2 months. We truly appreciate all your support. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge one person who has continuously stepped up. Chris Sandy has agreed once again to match all donations we receive up to $10,000 until the end of January. So please join Chris in supporting BCSS. Thank you, Chris. BCSS families. It is not easy being a caregiver and loving someone with a stigmatized mental illness. Thank you for having the courage to reach out to BCSS and for all you do for your loved one. Please remember you are not alone. BCSS has been supporting families for 41 years, and we hope we are saying the same thing in another 40 years. And now we get to hear from Julie, who has recently retired from BCSS after being a part of the team for over 20 years. Julie was a regional manager based in Fort St. John. Before Julie started her next chapter, I had a casual video chat with her to hear more about her journey and why she chose to get involved with BCSS. Thank you again for being here tonight and for your involvement with BCSS. Over to Julie.
So, Julie, first question, why don't you tell us, go back many, many years ago. Well, first off, how long have you been with BCSS? That's the first question, the important question. How long were you with BCSS?
Well, I started in February 99. So by my calculations, that's 24 and a quarter years.
That's a long time, decades. So now let's go back to that date in February. What made you join BCSS, Julie?
Okay, so well, I grew up in a home where bipolar disorder was very present. And then I was out of the country for about 8 years. And during that time, my mother was diagnosed with bipolar. So I was married, I had 3 children. She was almost to retirement age when she was diagnosed. And so when I came home, and my father passed away shortly after. And then I saw in the newspaper, there was an advertisement for family to family educational program coming out of the States in Fort St. John. So I registered for it. And that started my involvement with the mental health system. And I would say probably about half a year later, the job posting came up and I thought, well, I can do this. So I applied and I got the job.
So Julie, what effect do you think, or what role does BCSS play? As you said, that you've seen the changes within the medical system, and obviously BCSS is a part of that as well. What role do you see BCSS playing in that?
Well, I hope BCSS can play a role in it. I know that, for the first, probably 15, 20 years, maybe not 20, maybe 15 years, we were really well connected with the health authority. And they considered us, they included us. And as time has gone by, slowly it's been, that has been restricted. And for various reasons. So, when they changed over their computer program, they had to follow more strict rules on who could access, who could be in the area, et cetera. So all of these things were a combination. But we used to have an advisory committee, not an advisory committee. It was a working committee where information was being passed out to pertinent and contractees of Northern Health. And so we were getting information. Now we're not getting that. So unless you have a relationship with somebody that's in the system, working in the system, it's harder to get information that's needed, even to know what's going on. And so I'd say that probably any incoming person who can make those connections will likely experience some level of interaction and collaboration. But in terms of staffing for Northern Health, they're always looking for staff. They're always low on staff. And so starting or initiating any kind of community displays or presentations and involving them, it's just not working so well. So I think the opportunity is still there, but they have been finding their way as a health authority. And I think that's one of the reasons why they have not placed as high an emphasis on distributing information to people that are contracted services and things like that. It's a need to know kind of basis, it feels like. So I don't know if that made any sense, but
it did. And I think it just shows the need for organizations like BCSS to work with the health authorities, throughout the province, because we need that collaboration. And now, if there's somebody out there who's wondering, should I give to BCSS? They may be thinking, well, a lot of the funding does come from government. Why should I give to BCSS? Julie, what would your response be?
Well, I would respond in that we are thankfully receiving funding from the government so we can offer this service, but we can increase that service. The more funds we receive, we can increase, not dependent on government money. And so I would encourage people to give, because it allows for additional staff members, it allows for resources. And of course, there's also the aspect of the research that BCSS is engaged in, and that's really important too. So yeah, I would say I'm not for completely government funded organizations. I think that the private source of funding holds some greater accountability as well. So yeah, I would recommend people to give.
Thank you, Julie and Phaedra. Obviously, that highlights another important point, which is the fact that we don't all live in the Lower Mainland, and there are people who are joining us from other parts of the province with great needs. And so there's a lot of work that we as an organization, the foundation in raising funds, and the society in distributing programs and services, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. But we are very fortunate to have good communication with government and with the health authorities, and there is progress being made. So we thank her for joining us and for sharing her insight. And it's very important indeed for us to help the society function as an organization that is not solely reliant on government funding. Through your unwavering contributions and commitment, we continue to thrive in the mission to provide crucial support and resources to individuals and families affected by schizophrenia psychosis. Together with the support of individuals like you, we can continue to make a meaningful impact and create positive change in the lives of those we serve. As you may have heard from Dr. Agarwal, who spoke at the annual general meeting education session, this isn't just about the present. This is about hope, about shaping a better future for many years to come. Your contribution is a vital part of that journey towards a longer and a lasting transformation. And again, I know we've said this many times tonight, but we cannot thank you enough for your continuous support and commitment throughout the years. I would like to thank the people in this room for joining us in person tonight at the donor appreciation event. And we thank you all at home who are following along for joining us virtually. We hope this has been interesting. Please remember to check your mailboxes for our holiday letter. And before you go, please take the time to fill in the event feedback survey. There's a website address, and there's also a QR code. With your feedback, we can continue to improve, and we want to improve as an organization. For our guests here in person, you're most welcome to continue mingling and chatting with us at the reception across the hall. And for all of you joining us online, thank you. Thank you for spending the night with us. We look forward to seeing you all at the events next year. Enjoy the holidays. Good night, everybody.